Do not take product if you are hypersensitive.
Oh, hey, Internet. Welcome back to the InTalksicated podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and this is a podcast where I usually have my friends on and we talk about life. It's my version of a drinking variety talk show. In honor of Mother's Day, which happened this past Sunday, I decided to do a Mother's Day episode. So I actually had my friends Sondra and Melanie on the podcast. They are two returning guests to the podcast. Both Sondra and Melanie have been on the show before with their significant others. Sondra's episode with Jessie was actually one of the very early on episodes of the show. It is actually episode 7. And Melanie and Ben actually came on the podcast for episode 21. So we are now at episode 60, but obviously definitely check out those earlier episodes. Sound quality might not be as good, but hey, they're both really great episodes. I actually talked to both Melanie and Sondra when they were actually pregnant. So they are actually back on the podcast this week to talk about motherhood. Now, I will say this is a very brutally honest episode about motherhood. Now, we actually really get into the things that you might not always hear about. Both Melanie and Sondra had very different pregnancies and very different births. So in this first part of the episode, because obviously we got together, we had wine, we ended up recording for 3 hours. So it's a two-parter, people. It's a two-parter. But in this first part, we do get into the two separate birth stories from Sondra and Melanie. Like I said, it gets really real. You are going to hear all about everything involved with childbirth. So you're going to hear about contractions, water breaking, induction, various birth complications that both Melanie and Sondra had. So you're going to hear about blood and tearing, and so it's very real. So if you are somebody who feels like they can't handle that, this part is not for you. In part 2, we do kind of talk more about motherhood after the birth, so the recovery and the various aspects of being a mother after that. So just a heads up, it's a little bit detailed, but that's what I wanted. I really wanted to get the real, true, unedited, unfiltered stories from Melanie and Sondra because, it was both terrifying to me, but also extremely fascinating. So I want to give a huge thank you to Melanie and Sondra. You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast and being so honest. I truly do think that I probably have quite a bit of listeners who are either mothers or wanting to be mothers or women who are interested in this. So I think this is actually really good to talk about. It's good to talk about the realities of the situation versus kind of the movie versions that we have in our heads as women. This is what InTalksicated is for. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. I sure did. I still remain incredibly fascinated by motherhood and pregnancy and childbirth and all that. And I will always be down to talk to mothers about this because it's very interesting to me. So part 2 will be coming hopefully on Friday. I should have it out the day after part 1 comes out. So stay tuned for part 2 as well. And so happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers out there listening. I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Jessie and the boys of Tarvold's Quest, sort of an unofficial sponsor of this episode because we actually recorded in what I call the TQ Studios, where the magic happens for TQ. I actually got to record with Jesse's mics and everything. He had it all set up for me when I got there. It was amazing. So big thank you to Jesse and a big shout out to TQ. Think of it like this. InTalksicated combines friends with drinking and TQ combines friends with gaming. So if you're into video games, go check out their channel. I will link to it below. I also hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Zoe. Zoe is one of our Patreons. So huge shout out to both Zoe and Tyler, who are our Patreons, supporting InTalksicated both financially and emotionally. So thank you so much, you guys. And don't forget that you can check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/intoxicated. I will have a link below if you'd like to go on there and check out the various reward levels and potentially sign up because we would always love some more Patreons. And make sure you do give us a follow on social media, and that is on Facebook and Instagram, Intoxicated Podcast, on Twitter at @in_toxicated. If you have any feedback or questions at all, you can always email us as well at intoxicatedpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure you do hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, really any podcasting app that you use. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Make sure you also subscribe to Intoxicated Reviews, because that is a separate feed, and you will not get those episodes if you don't subscribe to that specific feed. Anyways, guys, I'm going to get to this awesome, action-packed, epic episode with Melanie and Sondra.
Welcome back to the Intoxicated Podcast, everybody. We are here with two returning guests. Melanie and Sondra.
Hello.
From way back in the early days of the show. You guys were both on with with your significant others.
This is true.
But now you're back. And oddly enough, I talked to both of you when you were both pregnant.
Yes.
So things are different now.
We're not pregnant anymore.
Yay!
Now we're mommies.
And we're drinking.
We are.
This is your first, drinking intoxicated.
Yes.
As much as I hate to play into the whole stereotype of the wine-loving mommy, turns out I am.
Yeah.
Wine is delicious.
We are drinking red wine.
From a box.
There is nothing wrong with boxed red wine.
Cheers.
Jackson Triggs. Can we bring it in for a cheers?
Yes.
Cheers. It's actually really good. I really like that.
It's not bad for a box.
I keep telling myself that I need to get a box of wine, because I always just kind of need to have booze in my fridge for the podcast, just in case a random podcast comes up to do and I don't have time. I should just really have a box of wine in there.
Well, it's nice because sometimes I go through periods where I drink a glass of wine every night, and sometimes I just want a tiny glass a week. But
and red
it
wine's
stays
good for
good.
you.
Yeah.
Apparently.
And
I like
it's
it
just
because-
always there.
Yeah, it's like having a water cooler, but one that gets you fun.
Oh my god.
It's a mommy juice
We
cooler.
should have a water cooler of wine. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Literally a water cooler
see how
size.
quickly you're drinking it, though.
Yeah, it would have to be opaque or
No,
something.
you don't want to see that. No.
That would be funny.
Like, oh, that was a big glass.
So,
You just
Sondra
fill up
and
the
Melanie
big,
are here.
Contago water bottles of wine.
Hey, listen. Who hasn't snuck some wine into a movie theater?
I'm sorry. I don't
No, I
think
definitely have.
Okay,
yeah,
just me?
100%.
Just me?
No, I definitely have.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Oh, no, but I did take
Diet Coke bottles, red wine looks just like Diet
it.
Coke.
It's true. I did really sneak one into an outdoor movie sort of showing, and I assumed all my friends would be doing the same, and they didn't. So then I just looked really pathetic. So I was like, you can come to a 6 p.m. showing of Dirty Dancing and not drink?
No.
Oh, man. So, you guys have had bibas since we've last talked. And happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you.
So, how was your guys' first Mother's Day?
Technically,
we talked
this
briefly
is my
about
second.
This. Oh my god!
Yes, my little one was born 3 weeks before Mother's Day last
That's
year.
right, crazy.
I was barely a human then, but yeah, this is my second.
Holy shit! Second Mother's Day, and this is your first Mother's Day.
This is my first one, yeah.
So, how's what's your guys' ideal Mother's Day in your mind? We talked about this briefly before the mics came on. What you like to do for just you on Mother's Day?
All I wanted to do was to do nothing. and
Dick all.
It was great. And my fiance allowed me to do that yesterday, which was awesome. So, yeah, I slept in. Actually, I woke up. We're really lucky because our son sleeps 12 to 14 hours straight a night.
I hate her.
Sondra rolled her eyes so hard.
I can't help it.
I love this so much.
No, I am so happy for you, but I am so envious. My child does not sleep. It's just like me.
Oh man.
Go continue. I'm sorry.
We're off to the races, folks. Off to the races.
You're so angry. So I typically get to kind of sleep in by many parental standards. I can sleep in until 8.
That's sleeping in.
Well, yeah, because I know, yeah. So I woke up naturally at 8 yesterday, and I was like, oh no, you shut your eyes and you fall back asleep. And it was hard, but I did it.
Good for you.
Dang.
So I got up at like 10:30, and outside my door there were some flowers picked from our garden.
Shut up.
I guess what they were put in. A water bottle.
Adorable.
That's so cute.
I know. And a card and a gift. And now it sounds like there's something secretive about the gift. There's not. It was an oil diffuser.
Oh, that's nice though.
I really paused after it, and I thought people were going to be like, "What'd you do?" It's
What
an oil
kind
diffuser.
of gift?
Settle down.
It's my dick
I
in
just
a
want to relax
box.
with some peppermint in the evenings.
Oh man, that's lovely though. That's some sweet.
So it was nice. So I did nothing, and I had a present, and it sounds terrible. I didn't take care of my kid all day, and it was awesome. I love him. But it was nice to have someone else like, oh, I can play with Finn, and now he's crying, so you take care of it.
Yeah.
So that was nice. So I think, and that's really all we did. Oh, we did some gardening. I mean,
Yeah.
but it was lovely. It was really, really
It's a beautiful
Just
day.
a
It was
chill
nice.
day.
It was
That's
nice.
really nice.
The only thing that I wish I could have done, which I think is impossible to do, is I wish we could have gone somewhere for brunch, but also magically got a table quickly, which wouldn't have happened.
It's
so.
impossible in Halifax.
And on Mother's
Really?
Day.
Oh my
That's not
god,
gonna
yeah.
happen.
Crazy.
100%.
Yeah.
I also got to sleep in a little bit, but again, I had to force myself to. You automatically wake up at whatever hour. It was a beautiful day, so my husband took a nap. But the point of the beautiful day is I got to sit outside on my beautiful deck, and I had just bought myself a nice rug and pillows for the deck for Mother's Day. That's right, I bought myself a present. But I got to drink
Damn right.
a beautiful hot cup of coffee and the whole thing while Zach played outside. And then I got to also garden and play outside in the sunshine.
That's
And that was
nice.
it. The joy to me was just starting a task and then finishing it. Because when you have a tiny little one running around, it's impossible to like start something and guarantee that you're going to finish it in a timely
Right.
manner without having to worry about, a tiny human killing themselves.
Goodness gracious. I can't imagine.
Yes, my son is a maniac. I love him, but he is a maniac.
It's crazy.
Crazy. I
He just
cannot.
moves so fast.
He moves
for
so
someone
quickly.
so small.
And I
No,
gotta say,
it's insane. He's so
as someone like looking in on your guys' children, it boggles my mind how fast they grow.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's crazy.
Like, because with can I say his name?
Yeah, Zach.
With Zach, it was like he was a baby, and now he's like 13 to me.
Yeah. He
I'm
pretty
like,
much
holy
is.
crap!
He pretty
This
much is a
kid.
teenager. Like,
It is crazy. But then you think that in 9 months, this person went from like a clump of cells to a fully functioning, well, more or less person. So you think if that happened in 9 months, then
what can happen in 9 more?
but of
in a
course
year,
it's
yeah.
going to happen so quickly.
Right.
But the
It's
milestones
crazy.
are crazy because one day they are useless, and the next day they're just like sitting up and grabbing things, and it's just when did you figure that out? And it changes I'm just getting used to now. Like, oh, right now he's sitting up much more better, and he's grabbing at things. So I need to not keep like knives around him and things like that. I need to take those
Smart.
things away. 'Cause
Parenting 101.
now he can
No
grab
knives.
no knives, other breakables, hot things,
That's crazy. Well, let's go back to the beginning. Now, when I say beginning,
When a man and a woman loves each other.
Yeah, when a man and a woman get together, we kind of heard both of your guys's pregnancy, like when you were going through the pregnancy.
Yeah, and our couple origin stories.
Yeah, which was amazing, by the way. I love those episodes. Go back and listen to them. I will link to both Melanie and Ben's and Jesse and Sondra's in the description, so you can go back and listen. You guys won Intoxicated Awards, by the way, but I don't remember who won gold and who won silver, but you guys were at the top.
Oh,
But yeah, you guys won. You won the Intoxicated Awards.
Yay for us!
Because there was,
High five.
I loved those episodes. Like, I just love couple episodes in general, but
But we're pretty awesome couples.
You guys are pretty awesome. But we're going to get into some birth stories. I'm just going to sit back and listen because I don't know a lot about yours.
Okay.
I know about yours because I was essentially getting messages from Jesse like throughout that whole time, but I only know his side, which I don't think is the right side to hear from.
Honestly, he was there in the thick of it for a lot of it. I'm sure his side is pretty legit.
That's true.
But
You're the woman, and I want to hear these. I want to hear these details. So, shall we start with Sondra, or did you want to start?
Yeah, no, let's get the worst one out of the way first.
Yeah. No, it's bad. It's bad, internet. I promise. Not every birth story is like this. So if you are planning on having a child, please don't let me scare you. You may want to fast forward until the end.
Yeah.
So I actually had a relatively easy pregnancy, like not many issues at all. Did my prenatal yoga. I was like ready, and I had a lovely midwife following me through the whole pregnancy, which was amazing. I highly recommend it. We don't have enough midwives in Nova Scotia, so if anybody out there listening is pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant, put your name on the list as soon as possible to get a midwife if you want one.
Ooh,
and rant.
Good
She
tip.
was amazing. I can't even tell you how invaluable she was.
Just so, because I'm pretty dumb when it
no,
comes to this type of thing. What are the duties of a midwife?
So instead of my like regular doctor appointments, I saw a midwife instead. So like I didn't see an obstetrician, I saw the midwife. So she took me through the whole pregnancy process. She did the exact same things that an obstetrician would do, but my appointments with her were 45 minutes, where any appointments I would have had with the obstetrician technically would have been like 10 or 15 minutes. They just kind of check your heart rate and all that kind of stuff. But the midwife actually like takes care of you as a person, and they are there to deliver your baby at the end. So in Nova Scotia, the way it works is you're put on a team of midwives. So you have one main midwife, but she works with a partner. And at any point, at any time of day, one of those two women are on call. So it's going to be one of those two women that are there to deliver your baby.
Does it cost anything?
It doesn't cost anything.
What?
It is through the IWK.
That's amazing.
They just only have so many in Nova Scotia, so they don't take every case. Melanie's trying to sneak some wine. You can. It's called InTalksicated. We're drinking.
Me and Melanie are like off our game with these mics. Sondra's a pro. Sondra's like just at the right angle. I mean, me and Melanie are on the struggle bus over here.
I tried to like step away from the mic or lean away from the mic so I could slurp and not interrupt your nice story.
No, I love the slurp. Bring it on.
The slurp, the mic followed me.
I mean, drinking noises are okay.
It's a drinking podcast.
Because we need to have credibility as a drunk podcast.
That's right.
No, I'm definitely drinking wine.
Well, in that case, cheers, internet.
That's bitchin' now. So a team of midwives. Wow.
So the midwives, like, they talk you through the whole pregnancy. They do everything that an obstetrician would do if you need, like, they can actually prescribe certain medications during your time of pregnancy. And they also follow up post-pregnancy. So they see you 3 times in the first week postpartum. And
that's really
and once in week 2, 4, and 6.
Ooh, okay.
That's their general rule. With me, they actually saw me a lot more than that because I needed a lot more attention.
Right.
But anyway, she was phenomenal. All the midwives I saw were just amazing.
Do they focus on the mental side of things too?
They focus on more the whole, like the mother. Like when I first got pregnant, I started seeing an obstetrician while I was on the waiting list to get a midwife. And it wasn't until I actually saw the midwife that I felt like I was a patient. Right. Like when they first, they treat the baby as a patient, which it is. They test the baby's heart rate and you go and you get an ultrasound and all that kind of stuff. But when I first saw the midwife, she talked to me about like self-breast exams. She like felt my scalp first. I don't know. She like did an exam on me.
That's good.
And she just was amazing. And they like sit down with you in the first interview and they give you a whole binder of stuff, and they outline like a whole treatment plan schedule or like appointment schedule. Like in week 32, we're going to talk to you about this. And in week 36, we're going to talk to you about this, this, and this. And it's like...
That's so cool.
It's amazing because I felt very lost in the process before that. My family doctor, unfortunately, doesn't deliver babies anymore. So I was like seeing strangers at the IWK, and they were all lovely, but
right.
It's a totally different experience.
You build a relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, at the IWK, it's fantastic, but I would go in for my appointment, you take a number, you go to the desk, you register, and then you wait again, and then you talk to an intern for an hour, and then you wait for the OB, and then they do a 10-minute interview, and then you leave. Yeah. So it's just a totally different experience from like a 45 to an hour minute one-on-one consultation with a midwife. And so it's amazing. Midwives can deliver at home, like they can do home births. I chose to have a baby in the hospital. Thank God. Because so enough intro, enough midwife talk. They're amazing, lovely. You actually won't hear much more about her because she wasn't involved too much in the birth. So baby boy was very, very comfortable inside me and didn't want to come out. So in the end, he ended up being about 11 days late. And in Nova Scotia, they don't like you to go for more than 2 weeks. That's kind of the general rule. So after about a week overdue, they start talking to you about induction processes. So the first thing they do, which is like the easiest thing, is they do what they call a sweep, where at this point the midwife, make that face. Oh, if this is bothering you, you just wait, Sarah.
Do I need a barf bucket here?
Maybe.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So the midwife pretty much just stuck a couple fingers up my vagina, felt my cervix, and tried to sweep. So at about a week overdue, I was very tight. No dilation. My cervix was hard. Nothing. It was showing no signs of giving birth anytime soon. So she did what this is supposed to be sweep, where they like try and break up the membrane or something. So that was on like the Friday. True. And then on the Monday, so this is like, I don't know, 12 days later, no, like 8 days later or something, my midwife, I saw her again, and she did sweep again. She's like, still.
Does the sweep hurt?
Yes.
Yeah. So like,
it's like someone sticking their fist up, like into, it was like her fist knuckles were digging into the bone of my vagina, my pelvic bone.
And then they're sweeping, and you can, it's like you feel that, like there's something inside of me that's getting like rubbed and it's not supposed to.
Is it like, are they sweeping it with their
fingers?
Like this part?
Well, this part is like in your labia, like in the bone of your labia, because they have like a couple fingers up there. Yeah.
It's not comfortable. No, and they only do it for so long, too.
Yeah, it's just for a bit, but apparently my uterus is flopped back.
Mine too!
Right?
Okay.
So it makes it way harder for them to feel the cervix. My uterus is a little backwards.
I was going to
just relaxed.
Because
that's the nice way to put it.
It's
the opposite. Back, you said.
Yeah, I guess.
Mine's tilted back.
Yeah.
Too. So like when I get PAPs, it takes them forever.
Yeah.
And for a while I was like, what the heck? What the heck's wrong with me? Until gynos started telling me, your cervix is actually, like cervix and uterus, I guess.
It's just a little flop.
They're like back, it's like tilted back.
Yeah.
And so PAP tests are like extremely uncomfortable for me. I have to get my second cervical biopsy in June.
Oh, wow.
Because I have fucking HPV that won't go away. So like they have to test it for cancer. Like it's probably fine.
Yeah,
but like
there's
abnormal cells and the cells haven't gone away in 3 years, so that's concerning.
Yeah.
So like you need to have another biopsy, and I'm just dreading it because it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that's fine to me now. The sweep sounds.
The sweep wasn't. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't like it's uncomfortable.
It's deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah. So the whole time I'm thinking like, this is nothing. I'm going to be pushing a watermelon out of here soon. Trying to mentally prepare. And so going into the whole birthing thing, I was very laid back about the whole thing. I said, whatever gets the baby out of me the safest way possible. I said I would like to try as naturally as possible and go from there, because I am weird and I really want to feel my child coming out of me and join the ranks of millions of women who have given birth naturally.
Right.
Not that it's a badge of honor. However you get a child out is the best way possible.
But you want to experience
but
it.
I was okay with trying that. That did not happen.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler. So anyway, sweep on Friday, sweep on Monday, no movement. Went for an ultrasound. Baby was still fine. Somewhere midweek, they decided to start the induction process. So there are a few different ways that they can do this. So they opted to do something called Foley catheter, where they put essentially a water balloon up inside of your vagina, with a bunch of tubes hanging out of you taped to your leg. So they're literally hanging out like down to your knee. And the water balloon inside of you is supposed to put pressure on your cervix to kind of trigger that response that it needs to start softening and opening up. Mm-hmm. So for several days, actually for several weeks, I'd been having very mild, like crampy contractions. Nothing serious, just like crampy feeling. And for the day before and that day that I got this Foley catheter in, I was having like very regular crampy contractions, but very mild. So still nothing to even think about. And my cervix was still nowhere near where it was supposed to be. But it was just crampy feeling. So as soon as I got this catheter in, contractions started. Like, I was like, oh, like big crampy ones, but not like push contractions, just like much more intense than I was experiencing before. So what happens when you get this catheter in is they put it in, you wait for an hour to make sure there's no reactions, and then they send you home. And you are supposed to come back 24 hours later and see where things are, unless things progress. So they're like, great, go home, come back at 5 in the morning or 3 in the morning or something. It was a ridiculous time that I was supposed to come back. So we're driving in the car on the way home, and these contractions are getting worse, but I'm starving because I hadn't eaten because I couldn't eat for some reason. So we stop at Subway, and I'm in the car and I need to pee, and I'm like in contractions, and I'm like, but I'm so hungry, and I was so uncomfortable. And we finally get home, and I need to pee so bad, and I'm like in so much pain and pressure in my abdomen and bladder, and I get halfway up the stairs and sploosh.
Oh my god.
And I was like, did my water break? My water just broke. And I ran to the bathroom and I peed still, because at first I was like, did I just piss myself? But I was like, no, okay, I still had to pee by the time I got to the bathroom, so I didn't piss myself. So I called my midwife and I was like, my water broke. And of course she was aware of the whole like induction and everything. So she's like, great. And the baby was still moving. And I was like, cool. So she's like, just keep waiting until you're 24 hours unless contractions start coming. The rule is you're supposed to wait until they are 4 minutes apart and last for 1 minute. And it was 411 within an hour.
Okay.
So that's the rule, 411. That's when you're supposed to go to the hospital. So anyway, my water broke, cleaned myself up, and then the contractions kind of stopped a little bit, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. I'm gonna just like relax. I was still having like crampy feeling, but it definitely had died down a little bit. Baby was moving, he was fine. And I called my midwife a couple hours later and I was like, so when your water breaks, like, is it supposed to keep leaking? And she's like, yeah, like normally it is. Like your water breaks and there's a lot of fluid that needs to come out. She's like, but sometimes the head can like block that, so it doesn't actually keep leaking. And I was like, okay, because mine hasn't, like it was just a big sploosh and then nothing since. She's like, yeah, that can happen. And sometimes the baby's head's just in the way. She's like, baby's still moving. Yeah, great. No more contractions really. So I went in at my 24 hours later. And they're like, okay, great, we'll do an exam. And they get all up in there, and they were like, huh. And I was like,
it's not a good sound to hear.
It's never a good sound to hear. I was like, it was like an intern or something. She was like, well, I've never seen this. And I was like, what? That is not good. She's like, the water balloon broke. So the balloon broke, and not my water.
Oh my god.
such a bummer. To put it mildly, that's a real big bummer.
I was so like disappointed. And they're like, yeah.
Also, can I just say,
Yeah.
if you are examining a woman who
never
thinks that
say
her water is broken and she's about to bring like new life into this world, do not say, I've never seen that before.
You know what?
Yeah, right?
That's what my gyno says about my cervix.
Like
literally,
send her to me.
my last pap test, she was like, I don't think I've ever seen such a tilted cervix.
Oh,
As
you were
ours.
tilted.
At least though,
Tilted.
if you have this sort of general topic of what you're on, like, like floppy cervixes. I've never seen one like this.
Right.
But just a
I've never
general look like
yeah.
up ya.
Up, yeah.
Well, that's peculiar.
I have two questions
Yes,
at this
please.
point. I'm going to raise my hand so to not interrupt you because I'm fascinated. But one, and you can both answer this, even though we're just on your story right now. Contractions, what do they feel like? Are they just like super intense period cramps? Like, because I've gotten really bad cramps, like to a point where I need to be like in bed. And I've always heard the whole like, oh, a bad period cramp is like 1/6 the pain of a contraction or something like that.
I wish.
I mean, I don't know.
Worse.
Mine were brutal.
Like sharp pain? Throbbing?
For me, it was like somebody had reached in and grabbed all of my insides and put them into a vice and kept tightening and tightening and tightening. It was, don't worry, listeners, we'll get to this. But it was unlike anything I've ever felt before. It was so much worse than I thought a contraction would be.
Oh my God.
Because there was no time for breathing or getting centered. It was all consuming.
I feel like we didn't, neither of us had a very typical contractions story.
No. And it just goes to show how it really is different.
Everybody's totally different. Every
there's
child
no
is different.
way-
Every birth is different. Every mother's different.
Yeah. Because some people say, oh, like, actually, mine weren't that bad, or it was kind of like a bad period cramp. And I'm like, okay, no, there's clearly a difference because there's no way what I had would be compared to a period cramp.
No, I would say, like, the crampy kind of contractions that I was having, like, for a few weeks on and off earlier was like a period cramp. Right. Some went from like a regular mild period cramp to like a really strong period cramp, like that I would be like in quite a bit of pain, uncomfortable. But then when the actual contraction started, it was like that times 100.
And it's not just down low. Like,
it's like your whole, like from your boobs down.
Right, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's stemming from your back. It's brutal.
Yeah. But the pre-crampy contractions are like from the belly button down, like uterine contractions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah.
And then my second question was going to be about water breaking. Because when you said that you had thought your water broke, but it ended up not being actually your water breaking. TMI. But is there typically a smell when your water breaks?
That's one of the things that they say to look for. If there is a smell, then you have to go to the hospital immediately.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But normally it's just like clear, odorless
It's just
fluid.
like water.
Yeah.
Yeah, my
it's
dog tried
essentially
to
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Right.
I feel like, wait, did you hear what I just said?
Wait, what did you say? I actually didn't.
Boy.
I don't think she heard that. I said, my dog tried to lick mine up. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
Open mouth Sarah, speechless. I don't see that look very often, the speechless Sarah.
Oh my God.
Gross.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that.
We go and get to you.
Honestly, there's not much more to the story.
That's it.
That is like, oh my God, I can't imagine. Okay, Sondra, you go on. This is too much for me.
My dog did not try and lick up my water balloon water. I don't think.
I always think like someone would slip on it or something. Like, I don't know. In my mind, it's just
Well, it's like
lot
a
of
banana
water.
peel, right? Like in movies and stuff. It's like, whoa!
Yeah, okay, so I'm at the hospital, and she's like, wow, never seen this before. The water balloon broke, and your cervix still is not even a little bit dilated. It's like,
Holy shit!
so she's like, okay, well, we can try that again. And I was like, no.
No.
It was so uncomfortable. And just having, like, the worst part for me was the tubes that were hanging out of my vagina taped to the side of my leg. Like, I can't get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I can't deal with that again. And I was like,
that's
next.
bad.
Next.
That would suck.
So, the next option for induction
Uh-oh.
is called Cervidil, and it's essentially a tampon that they put up inside of you that's soaked in the same hormone that is supposed to trigger labor to start. Yeah. So I'm like, yes, tampon. I can deal with a tampon.
It's weird that they didn't start with that one.
Yeah, I think
it seems like that would be the most normal, easiest one.
Right? I think they try, because it is a hormone, like it's a drug, opposed to the other one, which is like a more of a manual, mechanical device, I guess. So the tampon, Cervidil, they stick that up you. Again, you wait for an hour with the monitors all strapped to your belly to make sure everything's okay and there's no reaction. And then for this one, you come back 12 hours later. So that sounded much more normal because that meant we were coming back at 6 a.m. instead of like 3:30 in the morning. Right. Just the way timing worked. So we went home and we made arrangements because I was like, cool, baby's coming tomorrow. Mom, come look after the dog. We're leaving for the hospital at whenever in the morning. So I was like, all right, I'm going to eat. I'm going to go to bed, have a shower. So I had a shower, and it was a Wednesday night because Survivor was on. So I had a shower, and I started feeling terrible. I was like, I feel like I have the flu. Like I had fever, chills, like I couldn't get comfortable. I was headachy and sweating. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to lie down. So I laid down, and then Survivor started, and we watched Survivor, and that was lovely. And then I was like, Jesse, I am not feeling well. Like I have a fever, and I can't get it to go away. So we looked at the information sheet that they gave us, and it said, oh, so 5% of women experience flu-like symptoms. If you do, please contact the hospital and come back immediately.
Holy shit, what are the chances?
5%.
Oh my god! You are the 5%.
I am the 5%.
You never think you will be when you read those things. You
Never.
Know? Like
You're who's the 5%?
Who are they?
Me. So I'm the 5%. So at, like 10:30, we go back to call the midwife and go back to the hospital. And I'm still having those really crampy contractions, and they're really regular, like every 5 minutes or so, but not lasting for very long, and they're not very intense, but they're just enough to mean that I can't get comfortable. I can't sleep because I'm just constantly like, it's not like a period cramp where it's just there and you kind of like, you almost forget about it sometimes if you get comfortable. This like comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes, like a contraction you think would, but lasts for like 30 seconds every 5 minutes or so.
Fuck.
So get to the hospital, take my temperature and all that good stuff, do an exam, and they're like, oh, still not dilated.
Oh
Right?
my Jesus.
Not even a little. So they gave me morphine. It was lovely. So I could actually finally like get some sleep and get a little bit comfortable. And I had like 8 million blankets on me.
Oh my god.
So I actually got some sleep, and Jesse was there and slept in a chair beside me. So they checked me a couple times, and then at like 6 a.m. when I was supposed to go back, they checked and they're like, great. It's like, you're finally 3 centimeters dilated, or 1 centimeter dilated. I don't know how much it was. They're like, you are dilated enough that we can now manually break your water and hook you up to the IV of the hormones that, was it progesterone, Pitocin? Yeah. Anyway, whatever it is that they hook you up to actually like start labor. Like, boom, here's labor.
Right.
So they popped my water, hooked me up to an IV, and contractions started like
immediately.
Immediately, like full on, can't breathe, contraction, one after another, one after another, one after another.
Shit.
I was in so much pain instantly. It was not like they show in the movies where it's like contraction, contraction, contraction.
Oh my god.
Yeah. It was like contraction. And then in between the contraction for like 10 seconds, it would still be that crampy feeling, but no time to breathe.
Hashtag samesies.
Hashtag samesies.
Damn. And when they broke the water, did it hurt?
No.
Okay.
I'm still on
Did it
morphine
kind of feel like
bit.
a relief in a way?
No. I honestly didn't feel it.
It's like something
at all.
breaking inside of you that you didn't know you had. You're like,
No, it didn't. It didn't feel like anything. At least I don't remember it feeling like anything. I was exhausted at this, and then it was very quickly. There was no build up. There was no like contractions are 10 minutes apart. They're 8 minutes apart. It was like contractions are right away, and they lasted for a very long time, each one, and no time to breathe. So I was like, like I said, I kind of wanted to try as natural as possible, thinking that I had done a lot of breathing exercises, and I'm really good at, compartmentalizing my brain from pain and that kind of stuff. So I was like, I thought I was prepared to at least like breathe through it, but I couldn't catch my breath ever. Oh my God. So I had a shower and like a bath, and it took so long just to get to any of those places because I was in literally so much pain. Like you can't walk, like you couldn't like literally do anything. So after a while, I don't even know how long, probably an hour or more of this like constant breathing. I tried the gas, it did nothing, like literally nothing. I was like, is it too late to get an epidural? And they're like, no. I was like, I want it. So I got an epidural, and it was the best thing in the entire world. And then I finally like looked at my phone, and I sent messages to people.
I'm having a baby.
I'm having a baby today.
Did the epidural kick in quick?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Honestly, it's kind of a blur. Things are a little. It was a very long, exhausting several days. So after the epidural, things were like really lovely and calm for a while. They checked me a few times. Baby's heart rate was great. I was moving along quite quickly. In I think it was like 6 hours, I went from being like not dilated to ready to go.
Oh wow.
So it was really, really quick once it got started. So then it came time to push. But I'm completely numb from the waist down, or like higher even. So when they say push, like it's I couldn't really feel what I was doing. They're like, try and poop, and I'm like, I can't control the muscles, like, so I'm like trying so hard, I'm like squeezing my face and fists, and I'm so like, bizarre. Am I doing it? And they're like, no. I'm like, no, not quite. I was like clenching my butt or something, and I'm like, but it's not the same. So
how the heck can you push if you're numb?
Well, some people, it affects some people differently. So like I think Melanie, you said you could kind of feel it, and
I could feel. I was aware of when a contraction was happening, but it wasn't like really painful anymore. It was like, oh, there's one, or actually, no, actually, it was more like, oh, is that one?
Yeah. So I love your labor voice.
That's exactly what it was like.
It's adorable.
So, but by the end of the time I was pushing, I think it had worn off a little bit, and I was able to feel a little bit, but that was a while later. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. I was in like, I had legs up over my head, and Jesse was holding my legs, and I was in like on all fours and like all these different positions.
Holy crap.
And he just got stuck. He was stuck. His head was kind of twisted a little bit, and between every contraction, his heart rate started dropping. But it always came back up, and so they weren't really worried because it was only temporary. So they let me push for quite a while. And so eventually they're like, okay, like he's stuck. These are our options. Like we can manually try and like reach in and twist him. We can use forceps to try and reach in and pull him out, or we can do a C-section. And to me, like, I'm a very active person, love walking and yoga and all that kind of stuff. So to me, C-section was like last possible resort. I really wanted to try, like I said, as natural as possible and go down the ladder. So I was like, yeah, manually, let's try that. And then let's try the forceps and whatever. So the OB, because at this point, when there's complications, like the midwife steps aside and is there more for support and lets the OB take over. They know their limitations as far as that kind of stuff goes, which is awesome. And she was a godsend to my husband.
Well, it must be nice having... And was it the one midwife that you had been dealing with the whole time? Or was it another?
It was the other one, but I had still dealt with her quite a bit.
That's
so you
good.
have a main one, and then like the second one you meet with a few times. And I actually really... I loved both of them, but I kind of preferred the one that actually was there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it just worked out. I would have been happy with either. But,
right.
So anyway, yeah, the OB tried to reach in and turn him, and he wasn't budging. Also, I have a flopped back cervix, so it was probably hard for her to reach.
Oh, man.
So they're like, okay, we're going to prep the OR for C-section, and we'll try the forceps in there, but we're only going to try like 1, maximum 2 times because his heart rate is dropping, and we want to make sure he gets out as safely as possible. So that's what they did. They prepped the OR, wheeled me into a different room. Jessie got all like dolled up in the scrubs and the little hat and stuff. It was adorable. And then they gave me even more drugs. So I was totally numb from the armpits down, like totally numb, like couldn't feel a thing.
Holy crap.
And they tried the forceps one time, did nothing. So they just sliced me right open. And like 2 minutes later, he was born.
Wow.
It was like I was in the OR for like 15 minutes. Like it was crazy. It was so quick once they decided to do the C-section. It was just like literal slice baby.
And you didn't feel like
anything.
Much?
Like,
wow.
Not a thing.
Not even like pressure?
Nothing.
Really?
I was like, is it happening?
Holy shit.
Yeah, they touch you, like they touch your arms and your chest and like down to see like where you can feel, and I was literally numb from the armpits down, like numb, totally numb.
That blows my mind.
It really affected me more than other people. I think other people like they can feel from like, I don't know. Anyway, I was very numb.
Whoa.
But by this point, I had morphine in my system. I had the epidural, which worked really well for me. And then whatever this was that they gave me, it was great. Yeah, so they sliced me open. Baby boy pooped at some point while he was trying to come out of me. So when that happens, they call the NICU to come in right away so they can like make sure he's cleaned up and clean out the air tubes and stuff like that. So as soon as they pulled him out of me, the NICU took over, and I didn't even actually get to see my child. And I'm a massage therapist, so I'm really big on skin to skin contact, and I was really like looking forward to that moment. I didn't see him for hours.
Oh my God.
After he was born. So they took him, NICU took over. They put like a breathing mask on him because they were a little concerned about his breathing. And they had like heart rate monitors on him, I guess. So my lovely midwife went and actually took pictures of him with the NICU, like working on him and stuff. So I got to see him, thank God. And Jesse was there. He was so happy, and he got to see him because he could move and I couldn't move.
Right.
So they were like stitching me up, and Jesse actually got to see him and stuff. So once I was all stitched up, they wheeled me into recovery, and Jesse went out, and like my mom and stepdad were there, and my brother and sister-in-law. So he took them down to the NICU to see him. So my brother, who's an amazing photographer, Ginger Snap Photography, took some awesome pictures of him, like while he's in the incubator and stuff like that. Nice. Yeah, so from like hours old, we have like some really cool pictures of him.
That's really sad that you didn't get that moment, though.
Yeah. So they stitch me up, and then I go wait in recovery until I can, move my legs and feel my legs. Yeah. And then they wheeled me down to the NICU, where I did get to see him. But he's in an incubator, and he's all hooked up to a bunch of monitors and wires, and there's beeping and machines around. It's very surreal down there. And I'm still, like, obviously recovering and stuff, so I got to actually, like, reach in and touch him. I don't really think I got to hold him that day, but I did get to touch him. And, yeah, then they wheeled me back up to the room and slept it off for a bit. So, yeah, the next morning.
It doesn't end there, people.
It doesn't end there. Yeah, that was the actual birth story. He is born now. So next morning I'm upstairs in the hospital room, and Jesse goes down to see him. I've been trying to like do some pumping to try and get some breast milk colostrum going. So Jesse goes down to visit Zach, and he, in front of Jesse, has a seizure.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Jesse does not deal well with beeping machines and hospitals. So he was watching this tiny little human. He was only 6 pounds 1 ounce when he was born. Have a seizure in front of him. So, and like beep, 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 beep went off. I can only imagine how traumatizing it was for him.
It's like, holy shit, what is happening right
It's
now?
so scary.
I
can't
know.
imagine.
It's so scary. Apparently, it's super common for babies to have seizures, especially C-section born babies.
I had one when I was a baby.
Yeah, Jesse's like cousin's kid had like 9 in the first couple of days that she was born, but she's perfectly fine. Apparently, it's super, super, super common.
They
But,
should tell you that.
right? That's
Yeah.
the one
Should
thing
tell
my
you
midwife
that.
didn't tell me.
Little heads up, thank you.
Yeah. He only ever had the one, so they decided they wanted to keep him to run some tests, of course. It's great.
Yeah.
And so Zach ended up spending a full week in the NICU, and honestly, I was very grateful that it happened. I think it actually worked out perfectly because I was in no shape to take care of a child, and Jesse was really busy taking care of me.
True.
So typical turnover time in the hospital is about 48 hours after you have a baby by C-section. So after about 48 hours, they kicked me out. And they're like, cool, you're good to go. Leave your baby at the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
But I was in a lot of pain. Like a lot of pain. But I had surgery. I had my guts cut open. I had a baby. You think you're supposed to be in pain, right?
Right.
So, so I come home and I try and like get comfortable and sleep and trying to pump and breastfeed, and I hurt a lot. And the second morning I woke up after being home, I was just in tears because I could not breathe. I was in so much pain. I had such sharp pain in my ribs, of all places.
Ooh, that's the worst too.
Yeah, I was like, I have a rib out of place. There's something is wrong. And I stink.
Really?
Like, every time I went to the bathroom, it smelled like shit. Like, it was so rank. And I was, like, bleeding a lot, which is normal. They say, like, you know, it's normal to bleed. If you bleed X amount, then it's worrisome. But I wasn't bleeding that much. But I was like, oh, it's just, I was like, yeah, I smell bad. Of course I smell bad. It's just like gross baby blood. Like, not baby blood, gross, no. But like uterus
It's
blood.
all the stuff that's supposed to come out.
I mean, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was like, it's supposed to stink, right? I don't know.
and as a woman, we deal with so much of like stuff coming out of us at all
Yeah,
times. It's kind of just like,
It's fine.
yeah, it's fine.
it's
we
fine,
deal
yeah.
with that all the time. It's normal.
So anyway, I was in so much pain. I was like, Jesse, I have to go back to the hospital. Like, something is wrong. Like, I have a rib out of place, or it's puncturing my lung. Like, something is wrong. So we went back to the hospital, and they're like, okay, well, it sounds like you have an infection. So I ran some tests, whatever. They sent me for an ultrasound. But I was so tender everywhere. So they're like, okay, well, we're readmitting you. So they admitted me, hooked me up to some IV antibiotics. And they're like, okay, rest. So, like, that was it. So I just stayed in the hospital for another 48 hours, which was nice because Zach was still there. So, you know, we could go down and visit him from time to time. Yeah. And Jesse could kind of go between the two of us. So they you know, the doctors and nurses kept checking on me, and I was like, I'm still in a lot of pain. The rib pain did go away, and they had me on some really good painkillers and some antibiotics and fluids and all that stuff. My ankles were the size of watermelons each. It was gross. I had no ankle swelling during my whole pregnancy,
my
but
God.
afterwards I was so swollen.
Holy smokes.
So the day that I was leaving, like that afternoon, I was walking around quite a bit because they try and encourage you to walk around. And then I I noticed that around my incision in my belly was really red and really hard and raised. And it was like a full like line of redness all around my incision. So Jesse's like, gotta get the doctor. So the doctor came and looked at it and was like, yeah, it's probably just from you walking around too much. You gotta take it easy. I'm like, okay. And so he drew a line around where the redness was. Like he traced the redness. So the next morning, Zach was supposed to be getting released. So we went down to the NICU and I was getting released as well. So it was like perfect timing. So we went to the NICU and they're like, actually, we want you to stay one more night here in the NICU because they have like family rooms down there and they teach you how to parent, which is awesome. I don't know if they do that in the regular hospital. Yeah, it's great. So
see you later. Good luck.
Yeah. So we had to move from one hospital room to another one downstairs. And they like talked, like they gave Zach a bath with us and stuff like that and told us how to bathe him and how to hold him, and they checked the car seat and all that stuff. It was awesome. But I was still really uncomfortable and I couldn't do, like I couldn't do anything. It took me like 10 minutes just to like get up out of bed. It took me like a half an hour to go to the bathroom and get back down. It was crazy. Lord. So when I looked at my incision, the redness had gone past the line that he drew. So we're like, we got to get somebody to look at it. So I went and back upstairs and saw a different OB who was on call, and she looked at the thing and she's like, well, yeah, you're on all the right antibiotics, so it should go away.
That's frustrating.
So I'm like, okay. So, all right. So I'm on all these antibiotics. That's great. And they gave me a prescription to take home. And so I came home and was home for less than 48 hours in excruciating pain. Nothing seems to be really getting much better. And I'm like trying to nurse as much as possible. And I'm just exhausted and spent. And I'm still bleeding from my vagina a lot, which is totally normal. And then I'm like walking around down the hall carrying Zach, and I'm like, why are my feet wet?
Oh my God.
And I look down and I am walking in a pool of my own blood. It was oozing from my incision. It was like just gushing essentially from my incision onto the floor. So I'm like, Jesse.
It's like you almost want to scream, like, haven't we had enough already, for the love of God?
Man,
like,
we're not even.
Holy shit. Because I remember Jesse texted me the best point form version of all of the things you just said. Yeah. And he ended it with, and Sondra was holding the baby and her incision busted open. And I was just like, oh my God. What?
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, so I had a hematoma underneath my incision that burst through my incision, apparently. Oh my God. So I went back into the hospital and they had to like drain it. So they had to like fish around inside my incision and like let the blood and pus ooze out of it for a little while. And then I had a really lovely doctor that time. She was so sweet. She's like, okay, we're going to change up your antibiotics because obviously this infection is not going away yet.
Let's do something different.
Let's do something different. Like,
yeah.
I had an infection in my uterus that was getting worse because the redness was still spreading past that mark that he had drew. So they switched up my antibiotics, sent me home again. So I didn't actually even get admitted that time.
Right.
That I was bleeding on the floor. No big deal. Go home.
Shit.
Luckily though, and they also sent me for an ultrasound then as well. So now I've had 2 postpartum ultrasounds. In this ultrasound, they actually saw a small mass in my uterus. So like, okay, well, we want to get you back. It could be just a blood clot, or it could be a piece of your placenta left behind. So the antibiotics actually started working. I did start to feel better moderately. The redness started going away. But I was still bleeding a lot from everywhere. So I had like gauze on my guts and huge, like the biggest overnight pads you can possibly imagine.
Like pretty much diapers.
Like actual diapers.
Yeah.
I was wearing a diaper from like my belly button to my asshole pretty much. Were
they the kinds with 2 sets of wings?
I literally
No, I had those after birth, and I didn't even know they came in that size. But 2, not 1, but 2 sets of wings.
No, I had
Double
a pad
crazy.
in a T shape for a while because I had one over my belly and then one in my crotch. So I like put them together in a T and then stuck them in my underwear because it was like the wings were all tucked like over the top of my underwear. It was so bad. Antibiotics working, had a little fuzzy thing in my uterus, so I went back and I met with the same surgeon that cut my guts open, the obstetrician. But in the meantime, I had actually passed a very large blood clot, like the size of, like bigger than a prune, but probably like maybe the size of like a small plum.
Okay.
And just a clot of chunky blood just fell out of my vagina. Just
It's always fun when that happens.
So when I met with this OB, he was like, "Oh well, that could have been it because it was about the same size." So let's give you another ultrasound. When I told my midwife that, she's like, "That doesn't make any sense to me because blood doesn't show up like that on ultrasounds. Like it's not the same. Like he wouldn't have seen that the same way." But whatever. He sent me for another ultrasound and the thing was still there. So they decided they actually had left a piece of placenta inside of me. So
Do they, when the baby's born, do they try to get all that out?
Yes.
It
It
needs to go.
It all needs to come out.
It's
literally
your
like
uterine fire sale.
Not that
I'm picturing it like
Everything must
not
go.
that long ago somebody died from having a piece of placenta left inside of them that got infected. It's a huge deal. Normally, like during a regular vaginal birth, like it's like they call it afterbirth because you birth a baby and then you birth a placenta and it all comes intact. But for some reason, like you think my guts are cut open, like you can see in there, like just scoop her on out. So when my midwife found out about this, she's like, well, one of the nurses actually, when she was looking at the placenta, because they look over the placenta, it was like, it looks like there's a piece missing. So it was actually recorded on my file that there may have been a piece missing.
Shut up.
But this is 6 weeks
frustrating.
postpartum now. 6 weeks. I had
So no one
a
went
piece
back?
of placenta left inside of me. And then they had to do a DNC, which essentially is like an abortion. Like they
placenta
to get the rest of the placenta out.
Holy shit.
So then I was on more antibiotics. So I was on antibiotics for like the better part of Zach's first 3 months of life. So, and the antibiotics did not agree very well with his stomach. So I was just pumping and dumping mostly. He did breastfeed a little bit in between at certain times, but it was mostly pumping and dumping because I was really set on trying to breastfeed as much as possible. So after all the antibiotics, I was able to breastfeed a little bit, but he always was formula fed as well. But he's a big, happy, healthy boy, and here I am. I'm still very tender around my incision over a year later. I've gone to physio, chiro, massage. I've done some light therapy on the incision. And literally the worst part about the whole thing is the goddamn scar is lopsided.
Oh,
it's not even straight. It's
symmetry.
like off to the side and like uneven. It's terrible. Also, it really hurts and it's raised and bumpy and it sucks. Around the incision, yeah.
Your birth story should be like on a TLC show or something.
It's
real,
on
like
Intoxicated podcast.
That's true. TLC, pick it up.
Yeah.
That's
my birth story. So
That's
it took me a very, very
insane.
long time to be able to, walk and do yoga and all that stuff. But because we're moms, we just make it happen. And like I was you know, you do what you have to do. I was like walking and driving, you know, 6 weeks, 8 weeks postpartum, and they're like, you shouldn't even be lifting. And I'm like, yeah, but like you have to.
You've got
you
stuff
have
to do.
Yeah.
Like I have to do this stuff, you know?
What was it like holding Zach for the first time?
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Because the first time I held him was after he had his seizure. So I was down in the NICU and he was hooked up to heart monitors. He had like pads on his head, on his scalp. He was hooked up to so many wires and patches, and he was so small, and I was on so many drugs and in so much pain. It was scary. I definitely can't say that I had that wonderful like as my child moment. Unfortunately, like I wish I had. I was looking forward to that, but it was a very different experience than I, you know, than I anticipated, than anybody anticipates. It wasn't until we got home, both of us were home, and I think probably the antibiotics started to kick in. It wasn't until several weeks later that I like looked down at him while I was holding him, and I was like, oh,
I just get chills.
yeah,
You're making
like,
me cry.
oh, you're like.
You're real.
You're real. You're my child. I finally felt that bond right then. It doesn't always happen right away.
And probably you felt safer too because you were at your home.
I was at my home, and I finally
yeah.
wasn't like, I felt like a human again, because I was prepared for no sleeping. I was prepared for bodily fluids and puke and poop and piss. I was like so ready for all of that stuff. I was ready to be a mom. I was definitely ready to be a mother, but I was not ready to be a patient. I was not prepared to be the one that needed the care. And I couldn't do anything. Like I couldn't go up and down the stairs. Like it would take me so long to go just up and down the stairs. It literally took me a half an hour to go to the bathroom, because it took me like several minutes to actually get up out of bed or a chair and then like waddle to the bathroom. And then by the time I changed all of my dressings of my incision and bleeding everywhere and like, you know, did what I had to do, like it took me a couple minutes just to like sit down on the toilet and then get back up. I was in so much pain and so incapacitated, and I don't deal well with that. I am such a go like girl power, like I got
You're
this.
a doer.
I'm a doer. I've been walking yoga, like I said, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I was not ready to be so helpless.
And when you're in that state, you're probably just like, I just want to like do the things that are my normal.
Yeah.
You know, like your little normal like
make
yoga.
a piece of toast.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even thinking about like yoga or walking at that point. I was like just like a normal, like getting in the shower, like lifting my leg to get up over the side of the bathtub to get into the shower was like such an ordeal for a long time. Like not just a day or two, like weeks. I was in so much pain.
Well, just wanting to enjoy your child too.
Well, absolutely. Like
You
I'll never get that
you
time
can't. I mean, I feel like my first week was a complete wash too. So
yeah.
Holy
It's crazy.
jumpets. Holy crap.
Things got real for you.
Things got really real. Well, like, I think it just goes to show that no matter how much you anticipate, you can't know. You can't know what the heck's gonna happen.
No, and I really thought that I went into it with an open mind, and I did. Like I was, you know, I didn't have like a birth plan or candles. I don't know. Like I didn't have it. I was just like, yeah, let's do it. We'll start at the top and work our way down. But I was not prepared to be like, I don't know. I just guess I assume that when you go in for a procedure, things are normal. Like
Right.
things go according to the surgery plan, and then you recover after, you know, you go home after 48 hours and then 6 to 8 weeks of recovery, and then you're back to normal. Like do. I've had my gallbladder out. It sucked for a few days, and then it gradually just got better and better and better instead of worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I
and
just
then
can't.
a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then
I
like
just-
a slow climb up.
And I remember too, just like hearing the updates and just being like, I really hope that they get a break at some point. Like, however that be. Like, Holy, that's just traumatic as fuck.
We were very lucky to have a lot of help and a lot of support, and we have really great family and amazing friends nearby. So we couldn't have done it without everybody else for sure.
That's crazy. Well, Melanie.
Yeah. Yay.
Sondra, do you want me to get you more wine?
Yes, I do.
All right. Melanie, I don't know anything really, other than I saw a lot of really cute pictures. I got very excited.
Adorable.
The birth was not as cute. So I had, my pregnancy was really shitty. I was sick the whole time.
Yes. You were sick. You puked in the ocean.
I did. I did puke in the ocean. I puked in many a place, really. Yeah. My toilet, my sink, maybe your sink. Who knows? Work. Almost in my car. Lots of places. But yeah, the pregnancy was really rough. I loved that I was expecting a child. I hated being pregnant. It was awful. And I was really looking forward to, well, obviously you're looking forward to the birth, but also just more or less starting to feel like myself. Because everybody said, well, once he's out, you will, I mean, obviously, like, you know, giving birth's no joke. I mean, you'll feel a little bit weird, but things can start to return to normal. So I was really...
You're not pregnant anymore.
Yeah, you're not pregnant anymore. So I was really looking forward to that. So I had also actually wanted to get a midwife, and I was put on a waiting list, and no one ever called me. So I had an OB who was great. And I also had a doula, which was lovely as well. But kind of similar to Sondra, but for different reasons, didn't actually end up needing her service. And unlike midwives, I had to pay for the doula and really didn't need her help at the end of the day because of how the labor progressed. But anyhow.
What do doulas do?
So they're basically like a birth companion. They're there. They can do some like some support and also like some physical touch with you and kind of help you work through the labor, because I also wanted to try it to have an unmedicated birth if possible. But I was very open.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of doulas that are massage therapists. Like they kind of they go hand in hand all the time.
Kind of do some counter pressure and all these nice things. So I like Sondra,
champion for the mother,
right? Yeah. And I, like Sondra, had this idea that it would be like, and also like the doula had told me too what it might go like is, well, maybe I'll start having contractions or maybe my water will break. They'll increase. I'll give her a call. We'll have her talk about how I'm feeling. You know, I'll sit on my big bouncy ball for a little while. You know, and then like, oh, well, like your partner will stand behind you and he'll like caress your hips and you'll rock back and forth and it's all lovely and you'll moan and you're bringing life into the world. And anyhow, what actually happened was that we were in bed. It was like noon because I'd started having some cramps for a couple of days before. I wasn't feeling great, which again was normal anyway. So I was feeling like I wanted to puke. I had terrible heartburn. I had insomnia. But on top of that, I had some cramping. So I knew things were getting going. So it was noon and I was still in bed. And because I was in bed, then Ben decided that why wouldn't he also be in bed? I think that was great. Like when I was sick, he was like, well, I'm here for moral support. I love it. You just want to stay in bed. So, and the other great part about this is, so we're in bed and it's noon and I feel this like little pop and I think, that kick was really down low. And then I sort of lean up and I feel another pop and then gush and my water broke. So that's what happened. When Ben likes to tell the story, he's somehow changed in his mind so that he doesn't feel lazy for being in bed at noon, because in his version, he was out chopping wood when my water broke. I'm like, no, you weren't. What? You were in bed. You were like probably on Reddit.
Maybe he was getting wood.
So I was out chopping wood.
Oh my god. Yeah, right.
So anyhow, my water broke.
I want to get the voice memo of him telling the story. It's great. I was in the backyard.
Just chopping some wood.
I was building a house for Habitat for Humanity. And my partner called and said, it's time. So my water broke. And I was like, well, that's kind of fun. This is exciting. I was like, oh my God, Ben, my water broke. And I was already a few days overdue. So I had been hopeful. I had also had my membrane swept. Swept.
Hashtag swept.
Swept. And so anyway, that really did get things going. So my water broke. Lucky you. It was all very exciting. And yeah, it keeps dripping. I thought it would be like one big gush and it'd be over, but it's like dripping. And so I'm like waddling because I want to call my doula and then call the hospital and be like, hey, what next? So I'm walking and there's amniotic fluid dripping from me and my dog is following me and trying to lap all of it.
Sarah almost did a spit take.
I'm like trying to call and I'm like, Annie, stop. Oh my God, that's so gross. Annie, stop. Ben, can you get Annie to stop licking up water? So it was gross.
Adorable.
And so we call the doula and I'm like, hey. No, first I called the hospital and I was like, hey, so my water just broke. And she's like, are you having any contractions? And I was like, nope. And she's like, okay, why don't you come in? We're going to check you and then we'll probably end up sending you home. Because they send you home if you're not advanced enough. So I called my doula and I told her and she's like, okay, that sounds great. Keep me posted. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm like, I'm going to go take a quick shower because I'm going to have a baby today. So I went in and I took a shower. I filled in my eyebrows.
Yes, girl!
Of course.
I was going to ask the question.
I obviously filled in my eyebrows. You want to make a good first impression when you meet your child.
I mean, really, if
I
you
didn't
have
want
your
him to
brows,
be like, oh, what happened? And I'm like, the 90s. And so I filled in my eyebrows and I like grabbed our bag of stuff. And then I was like, oh shit, we don't have a plan for the dogs. I called Sondra. I was like, hey, can you take our dogs? She's like, okay. Cause just like,
meanwhile, cool. I have like a 5-month-old at home.
Like, sure, I've got nothing else going on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it was great.
No, they're great people. Wow. So they took my dogs. And
I went and drove out and picked up the dogs and brought them here and had a zoo because I also have a dog and a cat.
It was crazy.
And a 5-month-old and then her 2 big dogs. It was
plus
awesome,
Jessie,
actually.
which
Plus Jessie,
another,
which is kind of somewhat in between a baby and a dog. So
perfectly.
Well, you know, after you have some, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was a zoo. It was lovely, and her dogs are amazing. So
dogs are awesome.
Love them.
Except when they try to lick up amniotic fluid.
Yeah,
but
a little gross.
They're trying to help.
The other one eats butter.
So we leave the house. So I probably was getting ready for about 20 minutes. By the time I got off the phone, took a quick shower, and we started leaving. And I'm on the steps going down to the driveway where our car is, and I go, oh, that little contraction. That little contraction felt like a little tiny crap, you know? And I was like, oh, it's happening. Like, I was really excited when it happened. Like, oh. So we get into the car, and we're going, and we're starting on the highway. So we live about probably 30 minutes from the hospital. And about 5 minutes into the drive, I get another one. I'm like, oh, another contraction.
Oh,
and then
so exciting.
5 minutes after that, I get another one. And I'm like, oh, contraction. So it was
They're gonna get worse.
So it was 10 minutes. I had like 2 contractions where I was like, okay, that's not bad. Oh, I can deal with this. And then all of a sudden, it was just like someone flicked a switch because I had 10 minutes of manageable contractions. And then they immediately started lasting about 90 seconds each. And they were coming every minute. Sometimes no break. Sometimes, because it's like a wave, right? So the wave hits the peak and then it starts to die down. And then it doesn't fully reach a flat line before it's up again. So that's what it was like. So it was one after another.
That's a really good way to describe it.
So when we're now into the city because we live slightly outside the city. So we're in the city and we're probably about 5-7 minutes away from the hospital, and I'm gripping on to like what the
holy shit handle.
Yeah, that's exactly what I call it.
Of course,
I'm gripping onto the holy shit handle. My legs are spread apart, like it's very like something you'd see in a movie, and I'm screaming because it was excruciating. And Ben, he's like so supportive. He's like, just trying to breathe, and you're like, but you can't. You can't.
You
and
just
it was
really
like,
can't.
You can't. There was nothing. It was
the pain starts like right under your boobs. Like there's nowhere for your breath to go.
It's a punch to the gut that lasts a minute and a half.
It's like stab to the gut, like
just couldn't,
many knives.
And you completely like it's like having the wind knocked out of you. Like you can't do anything. So we get to the hospital. Shocking. He helps me out of the car. I hobble in and like the woman at triage, like they're so nice, and I have to think I'm sure they get people coming in all the time like, oh, I'm dying, and they're fine. So I didn't know if she thought I was like overplaying it or what, but I could barely sign my name on the admission form. We get in. That wasn't the triage nurse. That was just at admissions. And then we went in, and the triage nurse was like, do you need to push? And I was like, I don't know.
I'm hurt.
So we stripped down. She looks at me and she's like, you're 2 centimeters.
Wait, how is it 10?
10.
I guess.
And I had been a minute. I had been 1.5 after my membrane sweep. So I was like, are you kidding me?
So you only dilated half
a centimeter. And I was dying.
5 millimeters.
So I said, well, I want my epidural then. There's no
Sign
fucking way
me
I'm doing
up.
this without painkillers, without drugs or painkillers. There was no way. I don't know how women do it. So I was like, no, I can't. And she was like, well, we don't really give epidurals until you're at least 3 centimeters, but we can give you morphine. And I was like, that sounds good.
It's delightful.
So they put me in a tub, which was the worst bath I've ever had in my life. It was not enjoyable. And Ben is Ben the whole time is kind of just like gritting his teeth and like, oh no, are you
I
okay?
can see him
You're
in my
okay.
mind.
You're so strong. honey.
There's
You're
only so much
strong.
they can do, right?
And so she gave me the morphine, and I said, how long will this take to kick in? And she said 10 minutes. And I stared at the clock going through every contraction. And at 9 minutes, I said, it's not working. So they said, okay, you know what? We're just going to take you up and put you into the delivery room. We're going to give you an epidural right now. Because I was probably scaring the other women on the floor.
You were just
I wasn't like screaming or anything, but it was, I was moaning deeply. And I couldn't keep it in. Like,
right.
I wasn't trying to be dramatic. It was the worst thing I've ever felt.
It's primal.
It is primal.
Yeah.
And it is like, it's natural, but it's also terrifying. Anyway, so then they gave me an epidural, and then I slept for like 13 hours, and my doula had nothing to do. So that's why
Thanks,
I didn't
doula.
really need a doula. She was lovely, but I felt bad because by now it's like midnight,
time.
and she's been with me for like 13 hours, and she was also pregnant. She was like
Oh,
7
really?
months pregnant, and she was probably like, this really sucks. But I slept
But she
the
was
whole
getting
time.
paid, so
I woke up. They nudged me at one point, and it was funny because it was like I was really embarrassed. I'd fallen asleep. Like if you ever fell asleep like in class, and the professor like calls out your name, you're like, what? No, I wasn't paying attention. I was looking at my book. It was like that. I felt really embarrassed. So they were like, Melanie, oh yeah, what? It's like, well, your contractions are slowing down, so we're going to start you on some Pitocin. That's going to get things going. Like, okay, yeah, I was awake the whole time. Yeah. So started on that, and then I fell asleep again, and it was a great sleeps. And then they woke me up at around 1 in the morning, and they were like, "Hey, it's time to push." And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay." So same sort of thing. I was on all fours. I was upside down. I was standing on my head. Like I don't know. Every
all
type of
kinds
position. I was giving her at one point. Ben said he looked at me, and I looked so hilarious with the expression I was making that he wanted to laugh, and then decided maybe it wasn't the right time.
smart man.
Because how long at a time when you're in these positions are you actually pushing? So like, let's say you're in a certain position. Do they make you push for like?
So it's like, yeah, kind of like push,
And
okay, release.
Yeah, that is the one part that is kind of similar to the movies or
yeah.
TV. Yeah, it's like, you push for like, 15 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Like
then
as
a
long
break.
as you could kind of hold your breath kind of thing. And then like, and you do that like 3 times in a row.
Oh,
yeah.
And
well,
then,
sometimes
and then
they're
it's like,
if you can do another one, do
Yeah,
it. And I was like,
exactly.
So it's not like 10 minutes at a time.
yeah,
No.
and then you like
Okay.
take like a few minutes to like breathe and catch your breath, and then you do that again like 3 or 4 times in a row.
and interesting.
That was my experience anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Me too. And what I found interesting was that with the epidural, so I could feel when a contraction was happening, but it wasn't really, it was just a pressure. It wasn't painful. But actually what did hurt was the pressure of the baby bearing down. Pushing felt so good. Not pushing was uncomfortable. Even with the epidural, I was like, this hurts. It's uncomfortable. Now, I could have done it. If that's what
what labor
I would have been like, oh yeah, it's really painful, but I could do it. But yeah, not what the actual contractions ended up being like.
Is it weird that like I'm kind of envious of that pain that you had? Like I feel such FOMO for like not feeling
the baby
pressuring
coming
down.
down.
Yeah, because that was doable for sure.
Even like the contractions, like and the pushing, like I could barely feel anything at all. And I'm crazy. Like
I don't think that's weird at all.
I have a weird thing. Like I want to feel what it feels like to
I
push a
don't-
baby through my vagina.
No, I think that makes sense. But honestly, I still didn't even really feel. They were like, "Oh, the head's here. Reach down and feel it." So I wasn't like, "Oh, he must be down there."
Right.
Like so I could feel the pressure, but I still didn't have a clue where he was.
Right.
And then they were like, "Yeah, reach down and feel him." And I was like, "Oh, he has hair. That's crazy."
And you can just feel like the top of his
Yeah.
forehead.
That's
crazy.
Oh, that's
Oh my
so
God.
cool.
So then like keep pushing. They're like, "No, stop." Okay, the cord wrapped around his neck. We're gonna take that off. But like it was all like
that's
nothing
pretty
common. And then they're like, okay, like push, and then he was here, and they put him on my stomach, and I immediately was like, is he cute? Yeah, he's cute.
He's cute. He's very
Listen,
cute.
when you're
internet.
making something yourself, you never know how it's gonna turn.
It's like a long reveal process.
It is, and I just wanted to make sure we did it right.
Yeah.
And that moment
was all there.
where he was coming out.
Yeah.
There's no elegant way
Just
to
do
ask
it.
this.
Did you
there's,
poop?
There's no. Well, actually, that was.
I did not.
I was
I did
gonna
not.
save
I
that
did
for
not
the
poop.
end.
I
did
think
not
I
poop.
pooped.
Oh, okay.
I'm
did
pretty
it
sure I
feel?
pooped.
But did it feel like? It
feels like you're taking a big shit.
and you just feel it, and you're just like,
Yes.
ah.
Yeah. So he was out. But I don't really remember much at that point. So like he was put on me, and I remember like looking at him being like, oh my God, he's so cute. And then like, holy shit, that's my baby. And and also you had to, I was high as a kite. So the morphine by then would have worn off. But I had been like giving myself, because they had the button where you can keep dosing yourself. I
never even had that. That's so weird.
It's great. Obviously it's monitored and there's a limit, but I was, giving myself like fentanyl like every 10 minutes or whatever it was for like 13 hours. So I was feeling no pain. So I was pretty drugged up. So when he got out of me, I was just like, oh my God. And I remember saying to Ben, like, I want him closer on my chest. And he was like, no, he's still attached to the placenta. I'm like, oh, right. So I felt the placenta come out. I was like,
did you have to
jelly.
push that?
Yeah, a little bit. But nothing. It was
The
kind of
after
like,
poop?
whatever.
Little fart?
After a
Little
baby, feels like nothing.
fart.
So while all this is happening, and I'm just soaking in the fact that, holy shit, there's a baby and stuff, what was happening, and I didn't realize, was that, so your uterus is supposed to contract after you have a baby, and that stops you from bleeding out. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and that's when you hemorrhage. So I hemorrhaged. And I lost 1 liter of blood. And I didn't know this. So imagine I'm looking at the baby and I'm like, oh, he's so cute. So I kind of feel kind of woozy. And Ben is literally watching a doctor up to his elbows, hauling out clots of blood. And he's trying to be like, that's cool. There's nothing going on here. Because they didn't tell me. So I was just...
And they probably didn't tell Ben either. He just
yeah,
didn't really know
I think what they
was
said to
happening.
me was, we've got some bleeding here. So we're going to do some stitching. I'm like,
So you're
okay.
Little drip drop.
So that was happening.
I'm just my mind is.
And on top of that, wait for it. So some women tear,
Okay, here we go.
right?
Yeah.
Here it is.
So there are different types of tears. There's first degree, which is kind of like, I think, a little surface tear. I don't even think it requires stitches. Anyway, it goes up, I guess, like
stretch. Barely
Yeah.
a tear.
a 4th degree tear, which goes right through your muscles, right up to the sphincter. That's what I had.
is that called something? Is there a term for it?
Well, they told me it was just a 4th degree
Degree
tear.
tear.
So I tore from my vagina to my sphincter.
Episiotomy.
So did you feel the
Not a
tearing
thing.
happen?
Thank God. I'm so thankful that the
Epidural.
contractions were so much more than I thought they'd be, that I was like, please give me an epidural, because I didn't feel that at all, and I'm very thankful, because it hurt enough after the fact when it was already stitched up and I had like a piece of ice stuffed up my underwear. Like that hurt enough that I'm really glad I didn't feel that.
Yeah.
And the tear happens like when the baby's coming out.
So basically what happened was Finn on his way out was like, he was doing okay, and then he like turned at the last minute and his elbow, not his elbow, his shoulder. Doesn't matter. But anyway, it was the shoulder. So I had torn, and they also told me it was a little tear. So I'm going to stitch. Everything is like little.
Yeah, they try and downplay it for sure.
So I had no idea that any of this was happening, but I did notice how like another doctor came in and a couple of nurses, and at one point...
That's when it gets scary, when more and more doctors come in. That's what Jesse found too.
Yeah.
It was like, because right before they did the C-section, like a bunch of doctors started coming in, and it's like, sorry to
white
interrupt, but
coats that
that's
coming in. No,
that's the most terrifying part.
And the best part was when they looked down at the floor and to the wall across from the bed, and they were like, oh my. because there was blood everywhere, and it had like hit the other
It was like
wall.
a murder scene.
So, but I didn't know any of this was happening, and that's the great part.
God.
So after this is done, and I'm all like sewn up and stuff, and no one has told me anything, I said to the nurse, because she was asking me how I felt, and I actually started telling them about Sondra, and I was like, my friend.
Oh, so cute.
My friend, part of her placenta left in. And they were like, that's not what we're asking you about.
Your placenta is fine. Your vagina, on the other hand.
Well, it probably
I
scarred
said-
you a bit hearing that
Yeah,
Sondra story.
exactly.
Yeah. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know why I just told you that.
I feel so honored that I was in your thoughts when you in
I
the
think
most
you're
special
gonna be in
part.
my mind too.
Sarah's
If that ever happens
haunted
to me.
forever.
Both of you will be.
So I said, I'm sorry, I'm very confused. And the nurse said, well, you did lose a liter of blood. And I said, what?
A liter.
So I had no idea. So they filled me in after.
Fourth of that.
Yeah.
Well, like
a fourth of
that,
box
like
of wine.
more than that bottle of wine right there.
It was all on the floor. So after Ben was like, yeah, I was scared shitless, but I didn't want to say
Oh,
anything.
good
And-
Ben, good boy.
But, very fortunate that we have a modern healthcare system, and I had
God.
wonderful doctors and nurses, and I was fine. But that was the birth story.
Yeah, you know what we kept saying while we were staying in the hospital for night after night, and like all of my food is paid for, and like Zach had to get all these tests done, and I had to get all these tests done and drugs. Thank God we live in
Then
Canada.
you could just
Thank
leave.
fuck.
Like we paid nothing for that. Like the only thing I paid for was like $30 for 2 nights or something to upgrade us to a private room.
Yeah,
Which is
same
nothing.
here.
Which is
And then parking.
and that's optional.
Dropping
Yeah,
it.
and
Yeah.
parking.
Parking,
Exactly.
and that was it. Yeah,
like
it's
that.
amazing.
It's just phenomenal. Like
Wow.
I don't know how people in America afford that. Like
No.
You
how
have
do
to
you
go in debt to have a child.
Yeah.
After our son was born and everything was fine, I was not feeling great because I had lost all this blood, and so that they ended up releasing me from hospital, even though I was like, I don't feel safe enough holding my child. I had to take a wheelchair down to the car. Ben helped me into the car. This is going to loop back to what we were just talking about, though. So we drove home. My dad is waiting on our front steps with his iPad filming a video, and I get out of the car
I love
and
Melanie's dad.
I start bawling. This is not a moment I want remembered because I felt terrible. I was weak. I could barely stand. I felt like I had a flu. I had this beautiful baby that I kind of didn't want anything to do with. Not because it was not because of any issue bonding postpartum or PPD or anything like that. It was just I was so miserable. I was like, I can't deal with you.
I know exactly.
I'm so
yeah.
sick. So I was starting to resent my precious little baby because he needed to nurse, and I was like, I
can't. You
I'm
have nothing left.
exhausted. I have nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we get home and I'm feeling miserable. And the first few days are like this, and we have to go back to the hospital because they want to see the baby. They have the breastfeeding clinics. They want to make sure basically you're nursing correctly. And then they want to check the baby, but what they really don't check is the mom. And I said, I'm really not feeling well. I had some other issues that ended up going away. Like I had a really swollen left leg, and I was kind of nervous about blood clots and stuff like that. And I was like, but I'm not feeling well. I'm really lightheaded. Taking a shower is kind of unsafe. Like I get out, like I have to sit down.
Yeah.
Just getting up to walk from my bedroom to the kitchen is exhausting. I don't feel safe holding my own baby. I'm afraid I'm going to drop him. And it was all like, it's normal. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah.
So imagine
crazy.
though, if fortunately, we have.
baby. You're supposed to be in pain.
You're
You're
supposed to be
supposed to be tired.
And
you're just not
Yeah.
sleeping through the night.
So that's one issue, is not taking mother's concerns seriously. But the other thing is, if we didn't have the type of healthcare we had, maybe I would have just stayed home and said, it's nothing, it's not worth me going
it's true.
and paying for someone to like see me and run any tests. I'll just I'll just suffer it out. Anyway, I went back a few days later for another breastfeeding clinic. I mentioned to the nurse, hey, I'm still not feeling well. And she had also had a postpartum hemorrhage, and she said, go down, speak to somebody. What you're feeling is not normal.
Good.
Thank God.
There was still a bit of a rigmarole, but in the end, I ended up getting an iron transfusion and left the hospital feeling so much better. But I kind of felt ripped off that first week was so miserable. because I couldn't do anything. And, you know, when you bring your baby home, it's supposed to be exciting. And don't get me wrong, I mean, he was healthy. So, I mean, that's really wonderful. And, you know, my issues, we were able to solve them. So I'm very grateful for that. But you bring your baby home and you just want to celebrate. And I felt like I just wanted to shut myself in a room and feel awful. And Ben was kind of lost, and he had this like little baby that he could only do so much for because I was breastfeeding, and he wanted to take care of me, but he didn't know what to do for me. And so it was just kind of shitty.
It sucks. Like, yeah, there's all these expectations. Like, you want to, that first time with your child is supposed to be bonding and magical, and it's supposed to be all about the baby, like you learning how to take care of the baby. But when you have to take care of yourself so intensely, like it's heartbreaking. I don't know. It was, I feel very, it was the same as you, like just kind of robbed of that, that time that I spent so much time trying to take care of myself that I missed that bonding time with him.
You guys gonna make me cry.
I know. Well, but like looking back now, like my child is such a mama's boy. Like he loves.
You for last time.
Yeah, exactly. They don't remember it. And bottom line, like now I am still his favorite person in the entire world, and I am the person that he wants when he's sad, or you know, that kind of stuff. And so it really didn't make any difference, and I really should not feel guilty about that. And yeah, like we did what we had to do to take care of ourselves so that now we can be the best possible mom. Yeah. But yeah, it sucks.
You know, and there's not enough. We hear so much about what to expect during pregnancy, and I read all kinds of books about what to expect during pregnancy, because there are so many weird side effects. Even like
oh my god,
like a nosebleed. You know,
my gums bled every time I brushed my teeth.
Whoa, weird shit.
Literally less than 24 hours later, like the next time I brushed my teeth after having baby, my gums didn't bleed.
No way.
It was crazy. It was totally weird. Like that was probably the weirdest side effect for me.
Weird.
Every time I brushed my teeth, my gums bled.
And you know about that, and you read these things, and people tell you what it's going to be like, and then you read about what it's going to be like when the baby comes, and then you are like, I think you do understand and read about a bit about postpartum depression, because that's something that people are more comfortable talking about now these days, and that's great.
Coming up a lot more.
But that's it. I was not aware, honestly, of any sort of recovery that I would have to go through. I thought that the hardest thing, the transition, would be being home with a baby, and now I'm a mom. But
breastfeeding, maybe challenging. Yeah.
But I'm like 8 months postpartum now, and I'm just now able to go for walks over 2 hours because I had a pelvic separation that went undiagnosed for months and months. So that standing up hurt, and I kept being told, oh no, it'll go away. That's normal.
It's normal. You just had a baby.
So not only are you not told anything, then all your concerns are sort of dismissed as it's normal, when it's not normal. So when I told my GP, hey, this keeps getting, I'm
side note,
this is just normal.
Melanie and I have just coincidentally have the same GP who is phenomenal.
She's so good.
And if she delivered babies, unfortunately, no. If she delivered babies, like I think we both would have had very different stories.
Well, that's the thing, because I went to her.
She's so good.
And I was like, I'm having some pain. And she's like, what did they tell you? And I was like, well, they told me it was normal and might never go away. And she was like, that doesn't sound right. She literally like waved her magic hand over me and was like, I think you have pelvic separation. I'm sending you to an osteopath. And guess what? Pelvic separation.
Holy jumpin'. So really, like, it's really good to have...
You need
second
a team.
Opinions, third opinions.
Absolutely.
And don't, if something, you know yourself, if you think, no, this isn't quite right, don't let people tell you otherwise.
Yes.
Get a second opinion and a third opinion and a fourth opinion, because there was something wrong, and it was really easily, like, I could fix it with just some exercises that I can do at home with a towel, and now I can walk again.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know, so anyhow, but I just don't think there's enough discussion about the recovery process after, and it varies like per woman, and I think from the symptoms to the severity of it. But you should talk more about it, because giving birth is no joke. Just because it's really natural.
Just because it's very common.
Dude, I'm like, my mind is just like, I'm just over here like, holy crap, it's crazy what our bodies can do.
And this is like just the two of us. Like, you didn't seek us out because we had these like crazy stories.
I didn't even know Melanie's story.
Exactly. Like, you just know us. Like,
Yeah.
this is my best friend, and we just happen to have babies close to each other, and they had crazy stories. Like, at my work, we had 10 babies born in 2017, and every single one of our stories is completely different.
Yeah.
Mine is definitely among the most traumatic, for sure. But everyone is totally different. And, like, yes, they tell you, like, pain is a little bit normal, but there's, like, women, I think we are trained and we try so hard to be so strong and not complain and be like, I can do it, it's fine. I'm like, we push past, but it's not fine. Like, there is a point where there's not enough talk about what is normal and what is not normal. Like, what healing process is. Like, when I left the hospital after having a C-section, like, I was expecting to have like a brochure or a booklet about what is normal. Like, you always hear, okay, you're not supposed to lift anything for 6 to 8 weeks. Nobody told me that. Like, there was nothing like written down about that. Like, in the bathroom of the hospitals, they put like a little squeezy bottle that you're supposed to like splash your vagina with after you have a baby with like warm water to keep the infection away. It's not right. But when you have a C-section, nobody tells you to do that. I didn't know to do that because I had a C-section.
Right.
The baby didn't come out of there. But the second time I got readmitted into the hospital, one of the nurses was like, "Oh, are you splooshing your vag?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know I had to. Baby didn't come out of there." And they're like, "No, you should still do that because you still bleed out of there."
It's crazy they didn't tell you.
Nobody told me that. They're like, it's, and like, the IWK is fantastic, and I dealt with a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses over the whole time I was there, and I will say like 85 to 90% of them were amazing. The 5 to 10%, 15% that were not amazing were really not amazing. And I felt the one really downfall that I found that they had was the lack of communication between departments and between other doctors and nurses. There was no communication between the NICU and where I was staying. So, like, even though my child was like 3 or 4 floors down and I was, they didn't communicate with each other at all. Wow. So when we were saying, like, there was such a miscommunication about when Zach was being released versus when I was being released, and they were going to send him up to my floor and then I was going to go down to his floor and all this kind of stuff. It was just like, it was really, that was the most frustrating part. And it was like, they were going to give me this drug and like, oh, no, we're going to give you this drug and blah, 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 blah. So that was the one thing. But yeah, I think the best part is, right now, Melanie are both happy, healthy, and we have 2 fucking beautiful
super
babies.
Cute baby boys, and they're gonna be friends.
They're so opposites,
friends.
though.
We're seeing friendship on that.
Yeah, our children are completely opposites, and
Finn is like so laid back. He just like will just chill out and watch whatever's going on.
he's such a little potato. That's what I call him. He's like a little potato baby. He's so sweet.
Little mashed potato.
He's just a little sweet potato. He's very cute.
One thing,
and Zach is a maniac. Like, he's just like,
let's go do something.
he
And
wants to
Finn's like,
figure
I
out
don't know.
everything that he possibly can and climb on everything and pull on everything. And he's like, how does this work? And what does this do? And how does this work? How can I do this? How can I go here? How can I do this?
he is Jesse's son.
He is a maniac and he doesn't ever want to sleep. He just wants to party all the time.
One thing that I think is really cool about you, both of you, is that you were pregnant so close together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We didn't even plan it. We both
Didn't we?
Oh, we were both like at that stage. We kind of talked about it, but not
We
like
were both right
actively.
at the same time. It was really cool that we were both pregnant at the same time, even though there wasn't much of an overlap. There was some. That was cool.
Yeah,
And you probably talked to her a lot.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
what's next? What's coming? Is this normal? How big are your areolas?
But it's so crazy because, like, her and I had such completely different pregnancies. Like, I could only be of so much help because they were very different. Like,
They were very different.
stretch marks, no stretch mark, nausea, no nausea, like
C-section,
this and
no
this.
C-section.
Exactly, like, totally different, like, in all aspects, I think. Yeah, except we both have boys.
Yeah.
That's literally like the
A
only
lot of
things,
boys
yeah.
going around right now.
A lot
it
of
feels like.
boys.
There
A lot of
are.
boys.
It's weird because it's like everybody I know is having or had a boy. So when somebody tells me they're expecting a girl, I'm like, wow, really? There's not a 50-50 chance of that, but it's like, oh wow, a girl,
How
exotic.
rare. Exciting.
And I think we should also give some credit to you guys, the men in your lives.
Oh,
that
they're
are
fantastic.
doing so good and like hearing
Jesse
about it.
literally, like, he dealt with so much more, especially in that first couple weeks, than he even thought he was ever capable of. Like I said, he does not deal well with hospitals and bodily fluids and beeping, and he dealt with a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Ben was amazing.
Cleaned up some blood from the floor from me. Like,
Was there a car accident at one point?
oh yeah. Also, at one point, Jesse hit another car in the parking lot of the IWK. At some point, I don't even remember.
Just added
no
to the
big
fucking
deal.
list, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Listen, nothing solidifies a relationship quite like saying, honey, I'm going to take down my mesh granny panties now that the hospital gave me for free. Could you look
Those mesh granny panties,
They're
BT
so
dubs, awesome.
Amazing. Could you check the incision, or not the incision, the wound that goes from my vagina up to my asshole, and tell me if it's healing okay?
Thanks, dear.
So yeah, I mean that you get pretty.
That's love.
As if you were
That's
close
love.
enough before you made a baby. I mean, there's not much. Yeah, that's about as close as you get.
You guys
So,
got good ones. Let me tell
they're
you.
really good.
man.
I mean, Ben was like getting all up in there, and he was like, "I see kind of like a flap." I'm like, "A flap? That doesn't sound right." And I was like, "Was that there before?" No, I don't think so. Take a picture of it. So he takes a picture, and I'm looking at it, and then all I could picture was, you know how you log onto Facebook and it brings your camera roll
Oh
up?
my
And I was like, oh my god,
No,
what?
delete.
Like, just make sure this is deleted immediately, because what if you accidentally post it? But it was so close up, people would be like, what is that? So that's
art?
Some kind of abstract art?
Is
What
that the
that?
inside of a flower?
It's definitely not your sphincter coming out. So anyway,
What's the recovery on that like? Like, how long does that take to totally heal?
I'm 8 months postpartum. I don't know if I'll ever wear a thong again. Honestly, like, it's so sensitive. I haven't tried, but only recently have like wedgies started not becoming excruciating. And it's kind of like funny, but like, no, it hurts.
Wedgies are always a little funny.
It was a little funny, but yeah, no, it hurts because I was going back and getting going back and seeing specialists for them to do checkups, and even at like 5 months postpartum, they were saying, well, the stitches wouldn't all be dissolved yet, so you're probably still receiving some like irritation from that. So
5 months.
but the thing is, like, I didn't notice the first poop was horrifying. Like, I was so scared. I was so
that is
scared.
That's
to take
what
a poop.
one somebody told me that, and so in the hospital they like offered you like stool softeners, and I was
Yeah.
like gobble gobble
Yeah,
gobble,
no,
because I was petrified, because that's like the one piece of advice that I got was like, the first shit you take you're gonna feel like your insides are falling. I was like, no.
Oh my god.
So I was like, I want it to be liquid. I want to pee out of my asshole.
Drink like 6 cups of coffee.
Now imagine if
No,
there was,
Melanie.
and one passage
Just-
from butt to vagina.
No,
and
I
was
can't.
like, oh my god. So that was
Yeah.
So they were like, don't stay on the toilet too long because that's not good, but also don't squeeze too hard because that's not good. So I was like, how do I find this middle ground? Anyway, that was horrifying. The first few poops were so scary that after I would come out and I would say to Ben, I just pooped.
so proud.
And he would go, oh, babe, that's so good. And he was so sincere the entire time.
What a guy.
It's love.
That's love. But yeah, so you get to know someone really, really well.
Yeah.
Especially if you've had if they're there for the birth, or no matter how it happens.
Did
And
Ben
if
watch him come out?
He did.
Oh.
I remember. So I was asking, this is before I was pushing. Oops, hit the mic. Before I was pushing, I was like, so Ben, I was like, what's going on down there? What does it look like? And he kind of like leans over and then pops back up at me, and he's like, it's getting bigger. I'm like, what's getting bigger? I'm like, what's happening down there? Like, I mean, I know, but I don't really know. And I guess what he was seeing is like the actual like bulge of the head kind of starting to come through. But yeah,
crap.
so it was interesting. So he saw the whole birth. He thought that was pretty cool, and then he said there was a lot of blood, and he didn't really pay attention.
Smart.
Did you have the option to look via a mirror or something?
Well, so I wanted to, but I was so drugged up I forgot to ask. I had also asked to see the placenta because I mean, what a cool thing.
Yeah, that I would want to see that.
doesn't happen very often in your life.
So I
you
wanted
get to see a big part of your insides.
And I said to Ben after, I was like, they didn't show me the placenta. He's like, well, actually they did, except, they went and held it up. They're like, okay, here it is. And then they threw it in the pan or whatever they do because, they had to make sure I wasn't going to die. So
they had to make sure it was all there.
But through all of this, and this is a testament to how crazy relaxed my kid is now. He came out through all that after ripping his mom in half and came out, didn't make a sound. But they were like, oh no, he's fine. And I was like, because you see, right on movies, oh my God, he's not making a sound. They're like, no, he's fine. And then but you could hear the nurses going, okay, but just make a little sound. And he literally went, eh. And that was it.
And that really describes him now.
And that was it.